Hi there, I'm Joey.
I'm Jacob.
And we are done with Star Trek, bitches. It's done.
It's over.
We're never going back.
We don't ever need to rewatch another episode ever again.
I joke, of course. We have plenty more Star Trek in our future.
Far too much Star Trek.
So much Star Trek in our future. But we are here to celebrate our watching of the complete 80 episodes of Star Trek the Original Series, including The Cage. If you didn't see that came out yesterday.
Yes.
We watched The Cage for the first time. It didn't really have a chance going into our top 10 list, but we figured we'd wait to make the top 10 list until we watched The Cage.
Yeah.
So we're counting down our top 10 episodes of Star Trek the Original Series. We're joining the ranks of our beloved Wikipedia lists.
Yes.
And here we are. This is our 2 cents.
And like that, we have some takes. I'm sure.
I'm sure we do. I'm sure they're hot to somebody. But yeah, we're gonna get right into this. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, let's begin.
Let's begin, I guess. Number 10.
Number 10 is a Muk Time.
Yes.
Muk Time, which is it's a Muk Time. It's lovely.
It is
I don't know. I think a Muk Time holds a special place in my heart personally because it after the sheer brilliance of most of season 1, starting season 2, we're like, okay, we know season 3 is the bad one. We didn't quite know the reputation of season 2. So going into it and being presented with the joyousness that is a Muk Time was so refreshing, and
it gave us such high hopes that were definitely met for season 2.
Yeah, season 2. I know, based on other people I was talking to at the time of season 2's release, it's really interesting to see what other people thought about it at the time when we enjoyed ourselves almost the entire way through.
Yeah.
Towards the end, there were a fair few Gene Roddenberry episodes, but a Muk Time was definitely the one that just kind of let me know immediately that I was in good hands still with season 2.
Yes. There was definitely a majority good episodes in that season.
Yeah.
And this was a good indicator as to why.
Yeah, especially as big Spock fans from season 1, and really getting into his people and what they were like in the most bizarre way possible. It's
actually
it was fantastic. So yeah, that's number 10. Number 9. Number 9 is a Taste of Armageddon, which is one that I think in my mind, it probably rests higher. I think 9 is accurate, though.
9's an accurate space, but if someone asked me off top of your head, top 2 Star Trek episodes, this would make it on that list.
Huh, interesting. But yeah, it's fantastic. And keep in mind, when we say, these are our top 10 Star Trek the Original Series episodes, there are 80 episodes in the whole show. This is the top 12.5% of the show. So it's high up there. It's great. It's wonderful. And A Taste of Armageddon was one that really took us back. I don't know, especially coming off of an episode like Space Seed. Nothing could really come after Space Seed and be just as good, if not better. And then there was A Taste of Armageddon. We recorded them both on the same day, I remember.
Yes.
And
we were like, wow, I did not anticipate being this impressed following that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's such a fantastic episode. One that, if I remember correctly, it was the top episode on one of our lists.
Yes, that was the big hot take of that list.
Good old Den of Geek with their edgy contrarian list.
Yes.
Which was probably that was one of my favorite things about those 5 lists that we always talked about.
Yeah.
Was just how different the Den of Geek one was.
I loved whenever you would tell me, because you'd always tell me after we were done.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, that's where Den of Geek put it.
Yeah, the list that included a piece of the action,
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. So, yeah, beautiful episode. Absolutely beautiful. Moving on.
Number 8.
Balance of Terror. Balance of Terror. The first Romulan episode, and one of 2 Romulan episodes.
Right. I mean, maybe they have more appearances.
Maybe.
I'd like to think.
I would imagine they do. Yeah. I think what I mentioned, because I have a coworker that's a big Star Trek fan, and I said to her that we had watched the first appearance of the Romulans. She got really excited, and she's not as familiar with TOS because she's a big TNG person.
So that gives us a good sign then.
I would imagine they at least show up maybe once. I don't know.
But this episode's good because it sets up some interestingly high stakes that the rest of the show does carry.
We talked about a Muk Time earlier, but I think this was one of those first things that actually really gave us a great look into Spock and his people. Because it's not even about Vulcans; it's about an offshoot of Vulcans.
Yeah, it's about where did all the violent Vulcans go hundreds of years ago?
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those episodes that, for me, and being so as early on in the show as it was, I think it was episode like 14.
Yeah, it was around that time.
So it was still really early on, and the show hadn't done a lot of like big character focused episodes yet. And so like I remember like one of the things that impressed me the most in Balance of Terror was that there was that one guy on the ship that because he saw Romulans as bad people, he associated that with Spock. And thought Spock was like on their side, or at least had something to do with them,
or might collude with them. Not even if he was at the moment, but he might turn now that he knew who they were.
Yeah, and I remember just the show taking such an interesting stance on what is literally, I would say an allegory for racial prejudice, but it is just racial prejudice in the future.
Yeah, it's literally prejudice against an entirely separate race.
Yeah, just a fascinating idea, and just a wonderful episode. So yeah, that was Balance of Terror. Number 7, Where No Man Has Gone Before. Our first love in Star Trek.
And it made it to the list.
It did make it to the list. Because of course it had to. It's probably way more generous than we should be, number 7.
Yeah.
But I think Where No Man was on at least one of the Wikipedia lists. So
probably? I don't know which one, though.
I forget which one.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was Den of Geeks.
Yeah, very possible. But yeah, Where No Man, oh man, it really was like the first time that Star Trek truly, truly impressed me. You know, we had watched The Man Trap and Charlie X, and well, Charlie X is Charlie X, but The Man Trap had really impressed me as just a really fun show to watch. But Where No Man Has Gone Before, we recorded those first 3 videos on the same day. Well, first 4 if you count the introduction video.
Which might have been a mistake. We don't know.
Might have. Well, see, any like fatigue we were feeling by the end of Charlie X was kind of like was just kind of like brushed to the side then when we did Where No Man, because it's such a damn good episode.
It hit us really hard and really quickly.
Yeah. And we didn't know at the time. Well, you can definitely tell if you watch the video again. You could tell we didn't know that it was the second pilot episode at the time.
Yeah.
It was just another episode. But, so for some reason we weren't, like, weirded out by the fact that, like, there aren't regular outfits in that episode. Kirk and Spock are in sweaters. It's very much not your average Star Trek episode.
That's obvious in retrospect, and it's even more obvious where some writing carryovers were.
Yeah. Just, I don't know, just a wonderful episode. Something that has really stuck with me through my entire watching of the show.
I think a lot of the early show in general stuck with us.
Yeah, I think overall you're going to see a lot of season 1 on this list, but also I think that's also something like acknowledged by the larger fan base, that season 1 probably is the best season of the original show. But I mean, hey, that's just our opinion at least. I don't think anyone disagrees though.
Yeah, there's probably somebody.
We're gonna attract the biggest season 3 fan of all time with that comment. Anyway, that was Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Number 6,
Return to Tomorrow. I think this is like one of the only ones on this list that differs from anything that ever showed up on the Wikipedia list, because I love Return to Tomorrow.
It's a very solid episode.
Such a good episode, man. It's this wonderful idea of these last survivors of this alien race, and another one of those moments where you see Kirk's compassion as a character really shine through, I think. His compassion, of course, as always, being his downfall. But I think like it's one of the better episodes that does that concept. Is there are plenty of episodes that take advantage of Kirk as a character.
Oh, sure. It's a pretty easy punching bag for the show.
Yeah. But I remember it Return to Tomorrow is just one that stuck with me like a lot throughout the watching of the show. The ending especially is one that always sticks in my mind. That final kiss, that acceptance of oblivion. It's a wonderful moment in the show.
It speaks to all kinds of volume that is really hard to express with words.
Yeah.
But is easy to express visually.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Absolutely. It's also one of those episodes that has a beautiful Leonard Nimoy performance
because
he gets possessed by one of the consciousnesses, and he has so much fun with it.
He gets to be properly evil. It's so fun.
Yeah, well, I always love whenever Leonard Nimoy got to just play outside of his comfort zone with that. It's wonderful. Yeah, he always had a lot of fun with that, and this was no exception. So yeah, that is Return to Tomorrow. Number 5, Journey to Babel. Journey to Babel. With horrifying pig people aside, Journey to Babel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But oh man, what a great episode. This is another one that you know what? I'm noticing that a lot of our top 10 episodes have at least one really standout Spock moment.
That doesn't shock me.
But this being such a Spock-centric episode, and one that focuses on Spock's family. Like we saw Spock's people back in a Muk Time, but I remember Journey to Babel really hit me because it's more specific to Spock, to him and his people, and it's literally his parents. I also remember really liking the idea of the larger alien congregation. Again, horrifying pig people aside.
Yeah, exactly.
But oh man.
Plus, it's a reasonably good spy episode.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. It's not just an episode that relies on the fact that, hey, we have Spock's mom and dad here. It actually has something to say outside of that. Despite the fact that Spock's mom and dad are probably the best thing about the episode.
Well, they drive the most conflict, if you will.
Yeah. And it's another episode that plays on one of those ideas that I always love about Spock and just Vulcans as a people. And it's not so much that they are literally incapable of emotion; it's that they choose to push emotion away from them. I always love that. I love that idea. And it's one of those episodes that really puts that on full display.
I agree.
Lovely aspect of that.
Number 4
is Mirror Mirror. Because God, I love Mirror Mirror.
It is such a stupidly easy idea.
It is.
It's done in pretty much every major franchise, I'm sure.
Because of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because of literally the thing that invented the evil counterpart with a mustache trope. Although it's more a goatee in Spock's case. But yeah, it's it's such a wonderful episode.
Much like Sherlock Holmes can claim creating the returning antagonist.
Yeah. Star Trek. Many, many years later, can claim inventing the evil counterpart. This specific kind of evil counterpart.
Yeah, it's this specific flavor of it anyway.
And one thing that I love about Spock being the character that originated that trope, sort of, is that evil Spock isn't entirely evil. He's one of the only characters in the Mirror Universe that actually sees the error in his ways by the end.
Because Spock... it's gonna be, my comparison will be interesting, but you don't know where I'm going with it, is like an evil Batman.
Yeah.
Like, if you're writing him right, he's still not evil.
Yeah.
Just his frame of reference for good is different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Mirror Mirror is also a lovely episode for some of the larger crew. I remember commending it for being one of the episodes that takes the time to focus on some characters more outside of just the typical Kirk, Spock, McCoy dynamic. Uhura being a big aspect of that, obviously. Nichelle Nichols had so many wonderful moments in that episode.
And exactly, it's not even like she's just like a tag-along character.
Yeah.
She is an active member.
Yeah, and not just for our regular core crew members, but also the counterparts of them. As like George Takei gets wonderful moments as Evil Sulu. Evil Sulu.
Evil straight Sulu.
as we will always say. Just a beautiful, beautiful episode, and one that I can easily see myself constantly rewatching in the future. And now that we're in the top 5, I haven't mentioned it before, but just we're in the top 5. I adore all of these episodes so much.
Like, these were the hardest to pick.
Yeah. Us making this list, just it's insane. Which brings me very easily into number 3, which is, believe it or not, The City on the Edge of Forever. Now, I say believe it or not for multiple reasons. One, because of course it's on the list. It can't not be on the list. It's City on the Edge of Forever. But also I say believe it or not because it's not number 1. It's number 3. And that's not an invitation for us to start ragging on the City on the Edge of Forever.
No.
It's just, it might seem surprising that it's not the number 1. Trust me, we have good reason. We're Denim Geek.
Yeah, exactly.
We are the Den of Geek guys now. This is, City on the Edge of Forever. It's a fucking classic. I can't really say much more beyond that because it's one of the most beloved Star Trek things of all time.
You should probably say something about it.
Well, yeah, of course. Beautiful script by Harlan Ellison. Another one that explores Kirk's humanity in such a fascinating way. I remember we went into that. And I specifically told you, even though I knew ahead of time that it was the number one episode of all time in Star Trek. I kept that from you because I was like, I just want to see how you take it because I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know what it was like.
Right. That's a lot of when you know something's going to happen. You don't usually say.
Yeah. But still, like it still blew me away, even knowing its insane reputation. And
it was one of those episodes that, like, as I watched it, I was like, I just felt it was on a list.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Little did you know, it was on all of them. And number one on most of them. So, yeah, it's a classic in every sense of the word. It's the City on the Edge of Forever.
Number two. As we've actually mentioned it earlier on in the list, Space Seed. It's fucking Space Seed. Speaking of things I kept from you. Yes, kind of kept from me.
Yeah.
You clued me in, but I was totally wrong.
Yeah. It's also interesting to note that, like, I was like, oh yeah, I knew Khan was in the episode, but also, like, I didn't know anything about Khan, really. Like, I know he's a character. I know he's a bad guy.
I knew he was a bad guy.
I think he's responsible for a big evil thing in the second movie, but I don't know exactly how either.
Yeah, I think he's part of the plot.
Yeah, we
don't know though.
Yeah, I knew of Khan, and that's the great thing. Like I didn't just love this episode because I knew Khan. I loved this episode because I knew Khan was in it, but then he impressed me all on his own as a character.
And the episode was just massively interesting.
Yeah.
As well as, like, meta lore for the show and its internal lore.
I fucking knew you were going to bring that up because I was just going to bring up that it's the introduction of one of the things that you obsessed over for the rest of TOS.
It was the greatest thing on the planet.
The idea of 1990s World War III
taking place in the Middle East. It's such a brilliant idea.
I just gotta know, like, if that is something. I imagine it's touched upon in future Star Trek series, especially like the 3 shows that were running during the 1990s.
Someone had to do something with this info.
I imagine, or they retconned it, which is also
possible.
I suppose. But yeah, it's spacey. It's beautiful. It's lovely. It's spacey.
And it's Space Seed. Number 1.
Stop it. It's worth mentioning, we actually made more than a top 10 for this, but we didn't want to do more than a top 10 video. We made a top 20, so we have a lot of episodes that we want to just quickly mention before we get into number 1. Just some things that I have here on the list. The Enemy Within and The Naked Time are both very early episodes that grabbed our hearts, much in the same way that Where No Man did. The Trouble with Tribbles is an all-time classic that probably deserved to be on this list, but just didn't make it on.
Yeah.
I feel like we had to have a piece of the action somewhere in there because it's a piece of the action. Never let the fact that we didn't like most of season 3 be an indicator that we didn't dislike that we disliked all of season 3.
Yeah.
Because 2 of the episodes that I do want to mention here are, oddly enough, 2 of the episodes also on our Wikipedia lists. The Enterprise Incident and Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Both brilliant episodes. And there are honestly probably a couple more season 3 ones that I had in the running at some point, but just didn't quite stand up to the sheer quality of seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The Immunity Syndrome, The Doomsday Machine, Patterns of Force, all really great season 2 episodes that I think just deserve a spotlight somehow. And This Side of Paradise is a season 1 that I hold a special place in my heart for. So yeah.
Yes.
Honorable mentions. Let's see what our number 1 is. Number 1. Look. I mean, look. It's the Galileo 7.
That's our big hot take.
It's the Galileo 7. It's another one of our first loves in Star Trek, and one that I knew I had to have on here, and I knew probably would make it really high, but as I just kept thinking about it and I kept making this list, it had to be number 1 for me. And I don't think you really contested that or anything.
No.
We kind of just decided that together. It's just like, yeah, it's probably probably our favorite episode.
We kept going through the lists, kept moving it up, down. We're like, this is just...
Was it ever down?
You know.
Was it ever down?
It would keep going up against other things, and we're like, I guess this is just gonna be number 1.
Yeah, and here it is. It's our favorite Star Trek TOS episode. It's a brilliant character piece for Spock and McCoy, our 2 favorite characters on the show. Dr. Leonard McCoy, the absolute legend that he is, giving Spock a piece of his mind, and Spock being right in the end, of course, is what really makes the Galileo 7 so lovely. And again, I always love spotlight on crew members that we just don't regularly see. The Galileo 7 themselves are mostly made up of characters we had never seen before and never saw again after.
But it gives this great sense of the ship is full of actual people, not just random nameless NPCs.
Yeah. Which is unfortunately something that the show just did all the time anyway. It's just a random person that we need here to kill off to show that we're facing an alien threat. But the Galileo 7 killed off a fair few of those guys in that shuttle, and I still felt something for those guys because I got the time to know them beforehand.
Right.
I think that's what really makes the Galileo 7 stand out for me, and what really makes it my personal favorite Star Trek, the original series episode, and I believe yours as well.
It is my favorite episode, yes.
It's so damn good. So
we thought maybe our number 1s might differ.
Yeah.
But they did not.
Yeah, here we are. So, yeah. That is our top 10 Star Trek The Original Series episodes. And now we finally have clearance to move on. We had a whole fucking week of sickness in our house in between recording the last video and this one. But now we're finally here. Next time on Star Trek, our Star Trek videos on the channel, we never made up a name for this series.
No.
Let's keep it that way. Next time we're starting...
Next time on Star Trek.
Next time on Star Trek, we're starting Star Trek the Animated Series. All 22 episodes of it. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that. That's starting up next week, next Saturday. So, be on the lookout for that. Thank you all so much for your continued support on these videos. It has been an insane journey that I'm sure will only get even more insane as time goes on.
Especially as we hit the more popular shows.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
I'm Jacob.
Goodbye.